In any city, in any country, head to a chess club and tell the person at the front desk, "I wish to speak to the holder of finality." Most will have no idea what you are talking about, but if you are in the right place, he will shudder for a moment and then beckon you to follow. He will march down a series of corridors until he comes up to a door that is like a janitor's closet. He will open the door and then run away. When you enter, you will find that it is a large room. The walls and ceilings are painted with scenes of entire races, cultures, and species being exterminated. Many of the characters in the painting will not be human, and some will haunt your nightmares for years to come. In the middle of the room, there will be an old man sitting in a chair in front of a wooden chessboard. He will motion for you to take a seat at the other side. Do so, but when you start to play, you will find that no matter what, the game will end in a stalemate. Once the game ends, the pieces will teleport back to their original position. Keep playing as long as is necessary. Once the 13th game has ended, the pieces will remain where they are for a moment, not teleporting back. Immediately look to the old man straight in the eye and ask, "What is a final answer worth?" He will respond by upsetting the board. Once the pieces fall to the ground, they will start to grow until they are human-sized. He will then answer your question. The answer will be brief, but at the same time, the most horrible thing you have ever heard. He will then kick you, attack you, and the black and white pieces will start to fight each other. Use whatever means you have at your disposal to defeat him, for he means to kill, and if he kills you, there will be no afterlife, just unending nothingness. Should you manage to defeat him, the oversized chess pieces will disintegrate, and the man will slump to the ground and say, "The game is over. The final victory is yours." He will then burst into flame and burn until there is nothing left but ashes. In the center of the ashes will be a small clock. This clock is object 211 out of 538. When it is set in motion, it can destroy souls. Make sure it does not consume yours. In any city, in any country, go to any mental institution or halfway house you can get yourself to. When you reach the front desk, ask the receptionist if you can see the one who calls herself the holder of pain. The receptionist will say that he has no idea who you speak of, but will slide a card across the desk to you with a room number on it. Take the card while replying apologetically, "I must be in the wrong place then," and descend the stairs that may or may not have been there before. As you wander the upcoming halls in search of her room, you will hear the most beautiful singing you have ever heard. Should the singing ever stop, whisper, "Please continue, it's beautiful." However, the return of the singing is the last thing you want. If it does, you may calmly leave the building and tell your loved ones goodbye. You will be dead by morning. Should the silence persist, continue to the room shown on the card. Quietly enter it. An average-looking, blonde-haired woman wearing glasses will be sitting in the center of the bare room, with her back turned to you. A pool of blood will have collected at her feet. Approach her and embrace her. Mind yourself, though. The closer you get to her, the more pain and despair you will feel wash over you. You must continue in spite of this, lest you weep yourself to death. Hold on to her until she begins to cry, and ask her, "Where does their pain come from?" She will smile weakly and respond, "Their love." She will then hold out her hand, and you will notice a ring on her finger. Delicately take the ring from her finger, kiss the back of her hand, and leave. The ring is object 212 of 538. Only you will see that love can be the most painful thing in the world. "5 miles north of any aging rural town, you will find a large decrepit building on a hill. Knock on the door, and it'll be answered by a tall, dark man. Tell him you have come to speak with the Holder of Grace. He will try to persuade you to leave, but insist upon entering the house. He will direct you to a door at the end of a long hall, and he will leave you. Through the door, there is a stone staircase leading down into darkness. The stairs will seem to continue for days, and before long, your legs will begin to ache. Do not stop until at last you find yourself in front of a great wooden door. Knock on this door, and a soft voice will bid you enter. Should it speak any other words, run. When you enter, you will find yourself in a room containing a large table of mahogany set with fine china and precious crystal. From the ceiling will hang a chandelier of gold and gems. As you look upon these objects, you will realize that they were once the finest that could be had, but now all are chipped, cracked, tarnished. At the head of the table will sit the most beautiful woman you have ever seen, dressed in the ragged remains of a once glorious gown of white and gold. Across her eyes will be bound a scrap of silk. Address the woman as Lady, and ask if you might join her. When she agrees, you must know your place, and choose your seat at the table. None can tell the fate of those who choose wrong, but choose correctly, and food will appear on the table. Do not eat, do not drink, do not even breathe in the scent, for this is not the food of mortal beings. Horrific figures will then take shape in the other seats. Look upon these godless things without flinching, and introduce yourself to each with the utmost of politeness. If they find even the slightest offense in you, they will rend you to pieces. Introduce yourself lastly to the lady at the head of the table, and ask for her name. At this, she will only remove the silk from across her eyes. You must never look her in the eye. To do so would shatter your fragile mind. You may then ask her, "Why do you hold them?" and the lady will rise from her seat. Ask again, and you will find that she is standing at your side. Do not turn to her. Do not look her in the eye. Standing with her hands resting on your shoulders, she will begin to tell a story of angels and demons, of elder gods and mutilated souls, of horrors unnamed and sacrifices unnumbered. If you survive with your sanity intact, she will bid you good luck. She will lean in close to you and whisper her name in your ear. Then she will tell you your own, and you will know no more. When you wake, you will do so in the last bed you slept in, dressed in what you wore then. In your hand will be clutched a stained lace handkerchief with her name embroidered in the corner. This handkerchief is object 213 of 538. Pray that her favor will protect you from what is yet to come. In any city, in any country, go to any beat-down hotel or roadside rest house you can get yourself to. When you reach the front desk, ask for the room number of someone who calls herself the Holder of Vanity. The person behind the desk will whistle and hand you a card with a room number on one side and a key taped to the other. When you start to go up the stairs, you should hear the moans and thrashing of passion around you. But you must not pay attention to them, lest you suffer something that would horrify even the souls in the deepest pits of hell. If the moaning ever stops, knock on the nearest wall and whisper, "Everyone is doing it, don't stop on my account." If the moaning does not resume, pray that you suffer a quick death, though that is quite unlikely. When you finally reach the room that you are searching for, knock 4 times and say, "I have come for you." A male voice will find you. Reply in a loud voice, The woman is what I desire. If the man does not respond, open the door to the right, throw the key in, and quickly head back to the front desk. If he tells you to come in, open with the door key. Instead of finding a man, you will find a woman chained to a crucifix, whose body is of a heavenly, enchanting beauty, but whose face is the most hideous of any mortal has ever seen. She will ask you if you have come to free her. Look at her straight in the face and do not answer her, or she will make you her slave for all eternity. The thing you can safely do is ask her, what makes them vain? The woman will laugh a very shrill laugh that will shake the very foundations of your mind. If you keep your sanity after that, the woman will slowly tell you about the things that keep their beauty for themselves, and how their vanity will end up destroying the beauty they hold so dear. When she finishes speaking, pick up the rose on the bed without breaking your gaze away from the woman. As soon as you grab the rose, quickly close your eyes as the room fills with an incomprehensible force. When you open your eyes, the rose will be dead and wilted, its thorn still embedded in your palm. Its stem is object 214 of 538. The beauty of the world will now crumble and show its true nature. In any city, in any country, go to any mental institution or halfway house you can get yourself to. When you reach the front desk, ask for the one who calls herself the holder of chastisement. If a look of utter anguish crosses the worker's face, count yourself lucky, for you've come to the right place. The worker will lead you through a door behind the desk that you could have sworn wasn't there before. Go through the door and make sure to follow the worker closely, because getting lost in these dark halls would mean the end of you, but not of your endless torment. Hours into your journey, you will come upon a large steel door, and your guide will make a move to open it. Stop him, for if you do not, he will lock you out, and you will be forced to wander the halls for all time and beyond. Instead, end your guide's life. It does not matter how you do it, but from here on, you must continue alone. The door will feel extremely light, even though it's massive in size. Speaking of continuing alone, be sure to lock the door behind you. You don't want anything interrupting you in your task. On the other side of the door, you will see a headless woman with a whip, her body covered in lashes, stained in dark crimson with blood. She will point to a carved stone guillotine in the corner of the room. Approach it and strap yourself in before the woman grows angry. There is no telling what she may do if you take too long, for no one's ever survived who tarried. The woman will then proceed to strike you with the whip, one lash for every wrongdoing you have ever committed. Many cannot handle the pain and scream, but this is the one thing you must never do. You must keep a look of determination on your face and make no sound above a whimper, lest the blade come crashing down. If you retain your life and your sanity through your chastisement, you will be allowed to ask one question. How were they punished? Though she does not speak, you will hear a voice echo in your mind. It will tell you of how they were punished the last time the objects were brought together, of the penalties and vengeance exacted upon them, and the pain they suffered. When the voice stops, you will be released. You have less than a second to get out of the way before the blade descends, severing your head and leaving you in the woman's place as holder. If you make it, you will wake up in your home in a cold sweat, the whip clutched tightly in your hand. The whip is object 215 of 538. It longs for the flesh of those who would reunite them. In any city, in any country, you will find an area that is run down but still inhabited. These areas go by many names: poor districts, ghettos, and slums. Find the one nearest to your location and make your way there. Search around until you find a building of at least 2 stories, with most of one wall torn down. Be sure not to bring anything of value in with you, save for 2 nickels and a penny. Enter the building at high noon through the hole. You must not enter through the door. Inside, on the top floor, you will find an empty room with a foul-smelling and ratty-looking man facing a small, dirty window. Approach him quietly and whisper into his ear, "I'm here to see the holder of poverty." If he does not move for 5 seconds, turn and run out of the building and as far from the slums as you can. Do not look back until you are far from sight of the nearest building in the area. Never return. If he raises his right hand, however, stay in the room until night falls. When it does, he will turn and face you. You will notice that his face has been horribly burned, and it'll be hard to keep your eyes focused on him. Whatever you do, do not look away from him or flinch at his appearance. After a moment, he will open his mouth and say something that sounds like garbled nonsense, and point at the window. Look through the window and the man's life will take place before you. You will see how he lost his money, how his family descended into destruction, how his face was burned, and every hardship he was forced to undergo to survive up until that point. Do not make any motion to sympathize with him. He does not want or require your pity. When you are finished, turn your back to the man and give him some form of acknowledgement. He will then smile and hold out a small and ragged tin mug. Remove the change you placed in your pocket earlier and drop it in the cup. Give him anything other than 2 nickels and a penny will cause him to sink into a depressed state, and no matter how much you spend with him, you will not be able to raise him from his sadness. Do this correctly, however, and the man will close his eyes and fall asleep. The mug will remain in his hand, but the change nowhere to be found. Take it from his grip, but do not awaken him. The tin mug is object number 216 of 538. They must never come together. A woman lay on her bed, scanning her surroundings. The moonlight danced tantalizingly on the marble pillars and the tile floor. Her gaze shifted to the ceiling, her eyes slowly passing over the intricate frescoes masterfully etched into the glazed granite. She knew these carvings down to the last, most minute detail. The wind rushed through an open window, rustling about playfully, as if curious to see what treasures might be kept within this spacious abode. It carried the faint scent of lilac, the same kind her mother kept on the living room table when she was a child. Its curiosity satiated, the breeze flitted out as quickly as it came. The woman heard the faint grumble of a car traveling on a distant road. She knew nothing of what she, or her very existence, would become. Everything seemed so real to her then. She thought nothing would ever change. She remembers well the first one that came to visit her bedchamber. He was a bright-eyed youth, barely in his 20s. He reminded her so much of herself in those long-past days, a determination that sparkled in his eyes, the way he carried himself with an air of unwavering confidence. He sought to change the world, much like she did. When she looks back on that night, she realizes that she might have taken it easy on him. She softened her words for him when she told him what must be done. It was the same thing she'd done for Michael and Lawrence and all the other children that had gone to war and never returned. A woman lies on her bed, scanning her surroundings. The moonlight dances tantalizingly on the marble pillars and tile floor. Her gaze shifts to the ceiling, her eyes slowly passing over the intricate frescoes masterfully etched into the glazed granite. She knows these carvings down to the last, most minute detail. She waits for the wind, but the wind lies still as it has for so long. The stagnant air is ripe with the stench of dust and decay. The only sound is that of her own heartbeat, loud and cacophonous. To block it out would require too much effort. a mental willpower she no longer has. She still knows nothing about what she, or her very existence, has become. She knows none of it is real. She knows nothing will ever change. "Father," she said across the cavernous living room, the single word reverberating on the marble walls, growing softer with each repetition. He had never been the most open and receptive of men, but then he had seemed even more cold and distant, responding to nothing and no one, not even his own daughter. The sound of her voice died, and he did not stir. He was too lost in his own thoughts to acknowledge the presence of his child. "Father." She bestowed upon him the staff, and he accepted it graciously. How the young man resembled her, how uncannily so. She slept easy for the first time in what seemed like an eternity. For several days, the torturous agony that had plagued her existence was replaced with a calm. She could not remember the last time she had felt such peace and serenity. She considered her duty done. All that remained now was to rest. How little she knew then. A woman lay on her bed scanning her surroundings. All that's left, everything else is gone. The moonlight danced tantalizingly on the marble pillars and the tiled floor, taunting, teasing, maddening. Her gaze shifted to the ceiling, her eyes slowly passing over the intricate frescoes, masterfully etched into the glazed granite. How did it spiral so out of control, so horribly out of control? She knew all these carvings down to the last, most minute detail, and yet, still so much more to learn. The wind rushed through an open window, rustling about playfully, for that is all it is now. As if curious to see what treasures might be kept within this spacious abode, all the more space to fill with all broken dreams. It carried the faint scent of lilac, the same kind her mother kept on the living room table when she was a child, but never again. It's too late for that now. Its curiosity satiated, the breeze flitted out as quickly as it came. It knows what has happened and wants no part of it. The woman heard the faint grumble of a car traveling a distant road. It all seemed so pleasant, so why won't it stop? Oh, God, please make it stop. She knew nothing of what she or her very existence would become, for how can one fathom the impossible? Everything else seemed so real to her then, but in the end, it was all a lie. She thought nothing would ever change, and it never will change. Unless it can. The bliss was shattered in an instant. There was the staff resting on the nightstand, as if it had never left. The sight of it was like a dagger to her heart. She knew she had nothing to do with his fate, yet she still felt like it was all her fault. Deep down, she knows it is. None of this should have happened, yet she allowed it to. The guilt is her prison, and now she must serve her penance within it until the bitter end. Her father walked out the door, her brothers in tow, all eager for glory and triumph. She cried out to them, tried to stop them, tried to enlighten them, that it would all amount to nothing. "No, stop!" she yelled. "You are only advancing towards destruction." But as sheep are bound to the whims of the shepherd, never questioning, never wavering, even as their masters lead them to the butcher, so too did her brothers mindlessly follow the man she had come to despise so much as he herded them to their slaughter. "Go forth," he said, "sacrifice yourselves in the name of victory. You know what is expected of you. It is your duty to live up to those expectations, so that all shall praise your name, even as your bodies crumble to dust." She should have wrenched them away, bound them in chains, locked them away in the deepest, darkest cellar, kept them away from their doom at all cost, but in the end, she stood there powerless, helpless, unable to lift a finger, for the fear her father instilled in her mastered her and disabled her even as she strove to overcome it. She was a sheep, no different from her brothers, and there was nothing she could do to change any of it. Now comes the second, a young mother. She set forth on her perilous journey before her infant son even knew who she was. The staff changes hands once more, and then the bliss returns, though diminished from before. It lasts for 3 days, then the staff returns, and with it the grief. So comes the third, and then the fourth, and the fifth, and the countless others, all so optimistic, all wanting to change the world. Each leaves her a fragment of their life. The fragments pile up into a chaotic mountain of false hopes and shattered dreams, and she tells them what must be done. The same story every time, now as much a part of her as her heart and lungs. And every time the staff returns, the peace of relinquishing it has long since abandoned her. The grief of its return has only grown more poignant, to the point where it threatens to snap her mind in two. Yet, it cannot. For the cycle must continue. It cannot change. The buildings explode, and she keeps running around the spires as they tumble, and she keeps running, and the guns fire, and she keeps running, and the windows wail, and she keeps running, and the bodies pile up, and she keeps running, and the last soldiers fall, and she keeps running, and the invaders march through the streets, and she keeps running, for she knows how to make it all go away, how to make the horror and tragedy and despair of death go away forever, if only she can make it to the one who holds the staff, and get the staff, and then all the others. Then she can make it all end, and she will finally know true peace, and she doesn't yet know how, but she knows she will, for it's all she can do now. She knows death looms around every corner, and she cares not in the slightest, because dying's not so bad if you've got nothing left to live for. Come, little children, come to me with your hopes and dreams. Leave them behind and hear my story. My story of someone much like you, who sought to change the world, and yet changed nothing, and now has to sit and watch the world pass them by, everything changing at every instance, and yet nothing changing at all. Then, let me give you the staff, number 217, and go forth on your journey. And I will watch you leave, and I will smile even as I weep inside. And then I will wait for the staff to return to me. And then I will start it all over again, for in the end, nothing changes. The things we call changes are but illusions, temporary disturbances in our perception of reality. They give us the impression that we can shape the world around us, even though we are powerless. For to truly change something, you have to break the very rules of existence. To break such timeless, ironclad rules, you need to possess a courage the likes of which the world has never seen. She had never cared much for rules. Perhaps this is why she had come to loathe her own father. He who abided by the rules to the letter, and did all in his power to force everyone around him to do the same. When she reflects upon the day her new existence began, she wonders if it was all to spite him, to tear asunder the precious rules he existed to guard. With the limitless power she would gain by gathering all 538, she could erase them forever, and from their smoldering ashes craft a new universe, one unbound by the arbitrary laws of men, one that would only know peace. She wanted so badly to break the rules, but she lacked the courage to do so. As a result, she is now trapped in this new existence, forced to counsel countless others like her who want to break the rules but lack the resolve. She is forced to see her own failure reflected in the hope-filled eyes of those who come to visit her. She, who once sought to break the rules herself, is now bound by the rules of an entity unfathomable, those invisible shackles that imprison her even as she struggles to break free. She wants to tell her visitors to just give up, that their endeavors will ultimately end in failure, just like hers, but to do so would be to relinquish her last shred of hope. That dream, however fleeting, however unattainable, that someone with that indomitable courage will finally come forth, take the staff, and with its help, do the unthinkable, that which she was unable to do herself. Until that day, she will lie on her bed, scanning her surroundings, tracing her eyes over the frescoes, telling the stories, relinquishing the staff, and waiting for its return, repeating the endless cycle unto infinity. Amen. I will pass through the inferno, and I will pass through the cascade, and I will pass through the storm, and I will pass through the earth, and I will pass through the ether, and I will open my mouth as though to scream, and nothing will issue forth but the story, and so shall I remain until it all crumbles away to nothing, and then I will. In any city, in any country, go to any mental institution or halfway house you can get yourself to. Casually walk to the front desk without drawing attention to yourself, or the fate you meet at the hands of the worker will be more torturous than anything imaginable by mere mortals. If you make it to the front desk, in a very level tone, ask the worker to see the holder of prophecy. The worker will respond in a deep, fiery voice seemingly impossible for a human to create, telling you that the holder you seek has moved. Although the man will be yelling, no one in the lobby will take heed. Do not trust this man. He does not believe you are capable of hearing the words of the prophet. Respond to him in the same level tone as before, with, "I am ready and willing to bear the weight of his prophecy." At this point, the man will gaze into your very soul. If you have convinced him, his desk will then fall through the floor, revealing a staircase that seems to be impossibly long. If not, do not bother praying for a swift death, as your prayers will fall on deaf ears. Begin descending the staircase. In front of you, seemingly miles away, will be a bright white light, as though it is the end of a long tunnel. Do not look back, because the worker is watching you. Any sign of a faltering resolve, and you will traverse the staircase for the rest of eternity. If at any point the light at the end of the staircase seems to draw shut, as if a curtain were being pulled over, bellow in your loudest, most convincing tone, "I am worthy to meet the prophet and hear his prophecy." If the curtain draws back and the light appears, count your blessings, as the prophet has heard you. Otherwise, cast yourself off the stairwell into oblivion, and pray that you hit the ground before the creatures that inhabit this hallway can reach you. Once you reach the light, step through it into a new plane of existence, one more serene and beautiful than even the greatest artists have ever dreamed of. You will notice two men down the path from you prophesizing. One is a giant of a man, surely larger than any you have ever seen. His voice booms with a deafening tone that echoes through the entire plane. The other is a meek, fragile old man who can barely move. It is hard to understand him due to what seems to be an advanced case of Parkinson's disease. Approach one of these two men. It is up to you to pick the correct one. The man will only heed of you if to answer one specific question. Why does he want them to come together? If you have chosen incorrectly, the man in front of you will laugh maniacally, in a voice more evil than that of Satan. You will be cast into the oblivion to be tormented by the legions of hell for the rest of eternity. If you have chosen well, The prophet will lift your head and tell you in a horrifying prophecy, one that speaks in horrifying detail of his motives in bringing the objects back together. Consider yourself lucky to escape his tale with your sanity. He will then extend his hand to you. If you grab his hand immediately, he will see you as proud and throw you with inhuman strength into the air, sending you well beyond the reach of any natural atmosphere. You will eternally suffocate and freeze in the pitch-black void of space. If you say solemnly, "I am not worthy," he will grab your hand. Immediately close your eyes. If you do not, you will wish you had, as, in one instance, you would witness the slaughter of the false prophet and all other false prophets before him. The sight would surely drive you mad. In his hand you will feel a soothing warmth, like that of a warm spa. When you open your eyes again, you will be in the bed in the place you called home, with a glove on your hand. The glove is Object 218 of 538. Now you know his plan. Will you be able to stop it? In any city, in any country, enter any recruiting station or military base that you can get yourself into. Ask the officer at the front desk to speak to the holder of warfare. If he responds, "I'm sorry, but he's KIA," then do not despair. Your death shall be over before you hit the ground. If instead he calls 2 MPs and tells them to escort you to the stockades, your journey will continue. They will lead you outside the base to a seemingly empty bunker. Order them to open it as a general would order a lowly private. If your voice have enough power, then one of the MPs will open the metal door that leads into the bunker. If not, then you will be executed without hesitation. Descend into the bunker and tell the MPs to wait outside, for they shall not be able to shield you from the horrors that lie in the forgotten tomb. Walk down the stairs leading into the bunker military style, straight posture, facing directly ahead, and do not stop no matter how long it seems. If at any point you begin to hear cannon fire, then even a long, torturous death would seem merciful compared to what you're about to experience. However, if you hear a faint drum cadence, continue to march. The further you walk, the louder the drums will get, until they finally become so loud and unbearable that you would be tempted to gouge your ears out until you hear no more, at which point they will stop. Stand up straight and salute, even if you see no one in front of you. After about 7 seconds, you shall hear a gruff, tired voice signaling, "At ease." Do so, and a spectral figure shall slowly emerge from the inky darkness. It'll be a figure clad in camouflage combat fatigue, of excellent physical condition, 6'7" in height, broad, muscular shoulders, rippling arms and legs. Do not be fooled, however. This man is no longer among the living. "Report, troop!" the soldier shall scream. It is then that you must reply in a loud, confident voice. "Sir, I come to seek power, sir." If you don't, then the soldier will show you that all of the muscles aren't just for looks. "Then drop and give me 50, maggot," the soldier will respond. I suggest you oblige him, and begin your push-ups. Count off each one. If he places his boot on your back, continue to push no matter how hard it becomes. If he doesn't, then you have displeased him, and you will be disposed of. If you manage to complete your workout, the soldier will ask you to stand. You must shout, "Thank you, Sergeant!" The soldier will then nod and present you with a combat helmet, a frag grenade, and a 1911 .45 caliber semi-automatic handgun with an extra magazine. Take them, for you shall have dire need of those blessings soon. After a few moments of catching your breath, you'll be blinded by a light brighter than any star could produce, and shocked by the loudest of explosions. As you open your eyes, you will be in the most hellish and bloodiest of battlefields. Troops clad in gray will run ahead of you and be mowed down by passing gunship. Take cover beneath their dead bodies as tanks roll by and bathe the area in machine gun fire. Over your shoulder, a barrage of missiles will rain down from passing aircraft, which will in turn be consumed by a hail of anti-aircraft fire from behind a nearby building. Pull out the pistol and put on the helmet as you sprint your way towards the nearby town. Take care not to use up all of your ammunition, for you cannot take any from the ones whose lives you must end. Make your way to a building resembling a school, and take cover as the troops in blue engage the ones in gray. You will see them and witness their insatiable bloodlust. If they run out of ammunition, they will begin cutting each other with their bayonet and striking each other with the butt of their rifles, not stopping until they completely disembowel their opponents. With only your grenade in hand, run up the flight of stairs on your left, avoiding any fire you may receive, and head towards the roof. Once you get to the door leading up to the rooftop, say a quick prayer, pull the grenade's pin, and kick down the door. With the grenade in hand, let all the troops uniformed in blue on the rooftop see you, and outstretch your hand so they can see your formidable armament. A high-ranking general will approach you and ask you to state your demands. If you ask for peace, prepare for war. Instead, ask him to present the holder of warfare. He will smirk at you, but simply gesture towards the hand with the grenade, and he will comply. A small child will be brought out to you. Place the pin back into the grenade, and take the child. He will be trembling with fear and appear to be starving. Pay no attention to these illusions. Pull out the pistol and point it at the child's head. Squeeze the trigger without even an inkling of compassion. If you have been deemed worthy, the gun's safety will be on and you can let out a sigh of relief. The child will present you with a rusty old medal. That medal is Object 219 of 538, and with it, untold violence will follow. Do you have the heart to resist? In any city, in any country, go to any mental institution or halfway house you can get yourself to. When you reach the front desk, ask to visit someone who calls himself the Holder of Ingenuity. The worker will look at you, then hurriedly go back to work as if trying to ignore your existence. You will have to ask again, and they will then acknowledge you, and motion for you to follow them, with a scared yet angry look on their face. They will take you down a flight of stairs that will seem to take you upwards. However, midway, the worker will turn to you, with a look on their face now that seems to be pleading for you to turn back, hand you a pen, and walk back the same way you came, disappearing into the darkness. Now is the first chance you have to turn back. Take it and flee the country, or continue on. Should you choose to continue on, you will have to finish walking the stairs alone, in utter silence, all but the sound of your feet hitting the steps, and the lone sound of your beating heart, which seems to get louder with each step you take. After a long while, when it seems your heart is like a loud drum, you will come to a crossroads. There is a fork in the stairs, but both seem to be going in the same direction, intertwining themselves, spiraling away from you. You must choose left or right. It cannot be said which is the correct set. Pick the wrong one, and you'll be walking your way to the gates of hell itself. Turning back is no longer an option, as the wandering demons of hell's gates now have you under a close watch. Try to run, and you will be crushed between the gates, able to move neither back to the land of the living, nor to the fires and torments of hell, which would be like heaven in comparison to the state you must live through eternity. Should you pick the correct set of stairs, you will go on to find a door barely distinguishable from the wall it sits upon. Open the door with care and proceed into the room behind it. You will see in front of you another door with an opaque window which boasts of a small hole in the middle. Try as you might, the door will not open for you. However, place the pen in the hole, and a hand from the other side will grab hold of it. Wait a few moments, and the glass should repair itself. The door will be then open for you. Inside the room, the holder will be pondering over a large machine in the corner. The pen you gave him should be stuck somewhere on the machine, but it will not be running. It seems to be missing a part, or in need of repair. The holder will show you a table containing many objects that may be used to fix the machine. Act quickly, however, for if you wait too long, the holder will lose patience and kill you swiftly with one of the objects. If you are quick, you might notice the language is written on one of those objects, a wrench. Use it to fix the machine whatever way you can, tightening a bolt, placing it somewhere, or simply bash the machine with it. Whatever you do, should you get the machine working quickly enough to still be alive, the holder will stand in front of it, speak something in a language you will not understand, and then he and the machine will fade from existence. Slowly you will lose consciousness, and the room will become a blur until you black out. When you awake, you will find yourself sitting in a chair next to the worker that showed you the way in the lobby of a building. Clutched in your hand will be the wrench. With it in your hands, you will find yourself capable repairman in any and all fields. This wrench is Object 220 of 538. Are you still compelled to bring them together?